took his students to embark on a 14-year-long journey through the states like Song. And during those years, they practiced the Confucianism. So Confucianist system has been perfected and took roots in the Central Plain area. After 14 years journey, the descendants call this journey the Confucius traveling among the states. So what was it about, and what were the stories during the journey? Have they encountered some difficulties? Now let's take you on this journey. For you to better understand the contents of this exhibition, we have invited an interpreter from Henan Museum. Hello, everyone. I am the guide of Henan Museum, Ma Wendi. It's my honor to join this show to take you through the journey of Confucius traveling among the states. Now let's take a look. First of all, could you please briefly introduce some of the units and overview on the walls? How many sections are there in this exhibition? Henan Museum and Confucius Museum work together with the Paris Museum, Shanghai Museum, and 28 other entities to pull together the collections. And there are 3 sections about seeking the way. For example, after all, showing the way is the center of Confucianism. First of all, the first section. In the spring and autumn period, in 551 BC, Confucius was born and he created Confucianism, and he has always been seeking the way, so that the world is going to be an interesting world and people live in peace and harmony. He kept seeking the way with learnings continuously. You mentioned about seeking the way and harmony. What was the background that triggered him to disseminate the way? During the spring and autumn states, different states pursue hegemony, and the Zhou Emperor power has been declining. You could see one of the good example of the rites. It was unearthed in Henan, and there were 7 of them. Those 7 ding were stored in Palace Museum and Henan Archaeology Museum and Henan Museum. The owner is called Wang Ziwu, from Chu State. He was very rich. According to the rites, he should use the 5 feet ding, but he used a 7 feet ding. That was above the average. And there were many examples of the collapse of rites. For example, in Qi state, the Tian is replacing the role of Qi. And on the ding, you could see the writings and the paintings about the stories in history. Chen Xi is also named Tian Xi, the descendant of Chen Wan, the emperor of Chen state. During the disorderly years, he ran to Qi state and was kept by the emperor in Qi state, and he was renamed Tian. And then Tianheng, the son of Tianqi, assumed power, and Lu Aigong was persuaded to strike a war. And the Tian family's story was passed on to be a good example about that history. And the small states strictly accord to the rights in Zhou state. Xu is a very small state in Shandong province. And in number 22, there are 7 ding unearthed. You just mentioned about the ding. Usually it's 9 for the emperor, and for the officials, the lords, there are 7 ding for them in meal. And what's the purpose of those ding? Of course, to take food. According to our understanding, the ding is usually used to cook meat. Maybe those are for the purpose of keeping veggies. grains, actually. It's like a bowl. It's very unique because on top of the ding, you could see a cap in the shape of a flower. So it could be used as a plate. So I see the petals are not just for decorations. It can be used as the bottom of a bowl. Exactly. The Xue state used 7 ding because he kept on the tradition advocated by Confucius. And I saw a painting on the wall. What's the relationship of that painting with the collections? It's about Lu state. In the yard, a dance was performed that was once only enjoyed by the Zhou emperor. So as an official, he shouldn't be allowed to watch this performance. It's called Bayi dance. It means there are 8 rows of dancers performing in this dance, and only the emperors in Zhou royal family could enjoy it. So Confucius was very angry. He said that we couldn't tolerate such a behavior. And he said that if this can be endured, what else cannot be? This became a very famous saying. He hoped that the civilians could keep the traditions in their mind and do not commit any illegal behaviors. So now we see the relationship about conforming to the rites and performing the music and dance numbers. When I was a student, I had some questions about Confucianism. I read some phrases about Confucianism, and people commented on him from different perspectives. Sometimes he was taken as a very stringent teacher, but sometimes he was interpreted as a very tolerant and inclusive elderly person. I think we could depict him as a very good gentleman. His students used to say that he was very patient teaching his students, and he was a good example of being gentle, modest, and courteous. For example, on those sayings, they praised Confucianism as very good at guiding the others. So if you do want to know the image of Confucius, we welcome you to our museum. If you flip this board, you could see what's Confucius like in the eyes of his students and in the eyes of people living in Han Dynasty. This board is about Confucius' image in the eyes of himself. For example, it says that Confucius was based in joy, forgetting about aging. And we have saw so many pictures and drawings of Confucius. So let's have a look at those drawings, which is the next section of this exhibition. In front of us, we could see the drawings of Confucius finished in Ming Dynasty. You must have seen this image before in your textbooks. Exactly. We are very familiar with this image. And you could see how relaxed he is in the drawing. And also when he was very young, when he was a child, what was he like? I am not sure, but I think when he was young, he must be very smart, smarter than the average. Exactly. He was industrious and very intelligent. It was recorded that when he was a child, he burned the beans and played together with his friends. He also lined up those clays and beans, and he was very familiar with the rites and the traditions. So that was the beginning of his awareness of the rites. And among those collections, you mentioned about the stories of Confucius. we have a collection of the stories about Confucius since he was young. And this painting is a good example called the Zhengzhou painting. And what is this object? Confucius was born in Lu State, and this object is called Zong. And that was unearthed in Shanxi province. Zhou Gong is a very famous representative of Confucianism. He prepared the rites, so many Confucianist thoughts have been impacted by Zhou Gong. So by this time, we are very clear about the history and the stories of Confucius, and we can deeply feel that he was influenced by Lu State. So he wanted to imitate Zhou Gong, and he was a stark contrast to the others in that era. And now let's move on to the highlight. The journey of traveling among the states. And also on the floor, there are some guides. We're going to take you to experience the journey taken by Confucius. And you could see some symbols. For example, this is the first station in Wei State. In 497 BC, Confucius paid visit to Wei State, and he practiced his initial mission in his heart. He believed that it is an arduous task to disseminate the principles. Do you know where is Wei State? It must be very close. It's in Puyang, Henan province. It's also in northern China, like Anyang, Xinjiang, and it's very close to Shandong province. So it enjoys proximity to Shandong province. And also the people living in Wei was also the descendants of Zhou Gong. And Qu Boyi was a very good example official in that state. In the end of spring and autumn states period, he was under pressure, and Wei decided to change the capital city. In 1998, Henan Cultural Relic Archaeological Museum found such a tomb of Wei State with a lot of offerings. It's only 10 kilometers away from the capital city of Wei State. I just mentioned about 7 Ding. Yeah, I think it's a lower ranking than the Emperor's Ding. It belongs to those lords. Exactly. You mentioned that this Wei State is the place for Confucius to realize his dreams. But in the end, did he realize his dreams? His journey in Wei State had some ups and downs. Nanzi was a beautiful lady, but she always interfered with the politics. Some of the guys in Wei State gave suggestions to Confucius about this lady, and Confucius met this lady. And this painting shows you how Nanzi met Confucius with courtesy. And one day, Wei Linggong Emperor asked Confucius about wars. And in another painting, you can see how Linggong talked with Confucius. Linggong asked him about wars, for suggestions, and also trying to get ideas from Confucius about his own governance principles. Confucius was against the wars between the lords. So Linggong thought that Confucius didn't agree with him. On the next day, during their talk again, Linggong looked at his side and Confucius left. So Confucius already felt that the emperor despised the rites, so he left. That's a very vivid story. The painting showed us the disagreement between Confucius and Wei Linggong. We also unearthed many tombs in Wei State. Henan Museum unearthed two tombs belonging to Wei State, and the owners were the emperor of Wei State and his wife. Those were the plates to keep grains in ancient times. You can find the black paints to make it anti-corrosion, and also the cap can be used as plate if it's put upside down on the table, quite similar to the one we saw just now. If we keep walking, we're going to find a musical instrument. It's called duo. What do you think it looked like? Like a bell. Yes. In ancient China, duo represent the wood-made bell. The officials would shake this wooden duo to call for the civilians. In Kaifeng, which was the border area of Wei State, the bell was rang to celebrate the achievements made by Confucius. That echoes the theme of this exhibition about how Confucius championed the rights and principles. And those were the periods when his ideas were disseminated on a wide scale. This is a group of musical instruments as well. It's called a qing. Chimes. It's a percussionist musical instrument. In the New Stone Age, qing came into being. And there was a story about it. Confucius was not valued in Wei State. He used to say to Wei Linggong that in 3 years' time, I can bring about some new achievements if you use me. But Wei Linggong didn't give him this opportunity. A hermit walked by him on the left side. You could find the hermit with a basket. And he said that those playing musical instrument qing had some big ambitions, but he failed to realize his ambitions. And then Confucius realized that he is still committed to his ambitions and initial mission. That was really something. Quite persistent character. You mentioned about the wooden door and the qing instruments. And if we move on, during his journey in later years, there have been some difficulties for him. For example, in front of us, this is a special section presenting the chimes. For the chimes to be put here, what is the story about them? Since Confucius left Wei, he traveled through Cao and Song states, and a lot of difficulties occurred to him. And when he came to the border of Zheng State, he met his students. And the brother of Zheng Gong Jiyou was in office. And because of the disturbance in the state, Zheng changed to Henan province. And to differentiate the new state from the older one, it's called New Zheng State. It's still in Henan province, and it's a transportation hub. And it's a very inclusive place philosophically. So, in Xingzheng tomb, scholars found 9 sets of chimes. As you can see, at the top, there are 20 chimes called niuzhong, and below, those were bo, zhong. What were the characteristics about those chimes? People in ancient times played the 5 notes with the chimes, and in Zheng State, it integrated the diversity of cultures in the surrounding states. And the music sound has broken some boundaries and was despised by Confucianism. Because Confucius believed that those music were decadent music. We mentioned a lot of stories relevant to Henan province. I believe our audience must be curious about it. Most of the time, when Confucius traveled through the states, he spent most of his time in Henan province. That's true. During his journey through the 7 states, only Cao state was in Shandong province. The other places were in Central Plain area. For our ancestors, in our understanding, that journey didn't seem a very far one, but it's really something for our ancestors. Exactly. Now transportation is more convenient, but in Confucius' days, he walked through the states and tried to teach the students. And as you can see, there is another painting. The story is called 护师冠孙. Confucius accepted his students' ideas to pay visit to Chen State. Chen State was declining, and the emperor was in urgent need of Confucius to help him to revive his state. And in this painting, it depicted how Chen Minggong Emperor admired Confucius' knowledge. One day, a falcon fell into the yard. The arrow was made of wood. The tip of the arrow was grinded by the stone. The emperor asked Confucius to come and share his ideas about the arrow. And he said that this is a good symbol. Sushen tribe made those arrows. When Chen State was founded, Zhou Emperor used to send such arrows to the new state to show his respect for the new state. And in Minggong's yard, there must be more of similar arrows. So Minggong investigated, and it was true. And the emperor gave a lot of presents to Confucius and hired him to be the cultural counselor of Chen State because of his wide knowledge. Is Chen State the last stop of his journey? Not really. He also visited Cai State after Chen State. Cai was founded in Zhumadian in Henan province. Cai was the first small state that was affiliated to Chu State. And it was renamed Xincai afterwards, and in the end of the spring and autumn states period, because it was threatened by Chu State, the capital city was changed to Anhui province. This collection shows you another story. During the war between Chen and Cai states, Confucius was trapped in the wild. After days of no food, some of his students left him. Some were confused. And in those days, he taught his students about eating the pine tree leaves. And he said something about what was the time like. He said that in the peaceful times, everyone can pursue morality, but only in the hard times can we see the morality of the gentleman. The journey led southward, and now we are coming to Xinyang of Henan province. As we know, Xinyang was also part of the territory of Chu State. A capital city called Fuhan, and was very close to Yangcheng City. We have unearthed a lot of objects for the purpose of funerals. What do you think is the purpose of use of those objects? And I can see the decoration of the Mandarin ducks. Mandarin ducks represent beautiful love. And the duck was swimming in the lake, making this copper object more romantic. And on two sides of the pot, you can find two cicada. And what's the intonation of cicada? It reminds me of the winter cicada. And usually when the cicada sings, it's very loud. You must have heard about the story of the escape of the cicadas. Scholars believe that this pot must be used by the ladies. It may be used to keep some spices or the makeups. This is another bronze object. You can find some birds decorations. And just take a guess, what's the use of this? It's hollow below, so it must be used to keep some objects. There are disagreements. Some people say that it may be used to hang the decorations. Some say it's just utensils for rites. For etiquette, you mean to hold some earrings or necklaces? Exactly. So this utensil may also be used as a measurement. Some people say it can be used as a Buddhist utensil. We can see the traces of quite cutting-edge processes and techniques. Because of the techniques, there are so many possibilities of those utensils. And in the later years, at his 68 years old, he kept organizing his thoughts, trying to pass on the Confucianism. And this painting records the achievements made by Confucius. And in Qing dynasty, people started to pay respect to Confucianism. And Confucius had a higher ranking. He was taken as the teacher of 10,000s of students, and a good example for all the teachers. Now we come to the last section of this exhibition. After completing the journey, he compiled his thoughts, and how were his thoughts passed on by the descendants? The young people kept on passing on his ideas. And in front of us, we can see that in Ming Dynasty, another painting was finished. There were 3 lacquerwares in the middle in the painting. It was recorded in Xunzi that in the temple of Luhuangong, those lacquerware were seen. They were very unique. They were used to pour water. Without boiling water, the utensils would be tilted. If it's half full, it would be balanced. But if the water was too much, the utensil will be upside down. Confucius taught his students that the modest people can receive benefits, while the conceited reap failure. So it was a very good example to depict the thoughts of Confucianism. You mentioned that in Ming and Qing dynasties, people have more interpretations of Confucianism, and they started to cherish the thoughts of Confucianism. The last section contains a lot of cultural relics to prove the point. For example, this painting placed in the middle. What's the story about? In Han Dynasty, people also respected Confucius. So, in Han Dynasty, Confucianism was cited for governance, and Liu Bang paid tribute to Confucianism in Lu state. And that showed his respect to Confucianism, and that was the starting point about the later generations of emperors paying tribute to Confucius. On the left side, I can find some sacrifices. Yes, the 3 pigs. That was like the highest ranking of sacrifices. In 1771, Qing Dynasty, Qianlong Emperor paid visit to Shandong to pay tribute to Confucius. He chose 10 objects, 10 utensils to be the sacrifices. So the descendants call those sacrifices the Shang and the Zhou style sacrifices. If you have any interest, please come to visit us to have a look at those utensils. Very delicate. The traditional rites and etiquette has been passed down for 2,000 years till today. In the beginning, he was just taken as a scholar and then a teacher, and UNESCO cited Confucius as one of the 10 most famous people in the world. And according to the World Cultural Conference in 2025, 560 Confucius institutes have been established worldwide. So Confucianism has been disseminated worldwide. Thank you, Madam Ma. So today, with a short journey in this museum, we have a clear idea about the features of this exhibition. First of all, there are so many stories about his journey among the states with many cultural relics to prove the points. And there are so many paintings telling us the stories of Confucius. So through the paintings and the utensils, we could have a very direct feeling about the Confucianist thoughts and the experience of Confucius during his journey through the 7 states. Just now, the guide told us that the theme of this exhibition was about seeking the way. And Confucius believed that it was an arduous task to pursue the way. And he was very ambitious. He had a big mind. And he took the governance of the whole world as his due responsibility. No matter how challenging it was, he remained true to his initial mission and tried to realize his ambition. I hope through today's introduction, you could have more interest in this museum and this exhibition, and do come and visit. This afternoon, we have received a new piece of news. Since today, we have extended the opening hours of this exhibition till 8:30 p.m. every day. So please stay tuned with us. Pay attention to the booking information online. Come and visit Henan Museum to appreciate this exhibition of Confucius traveling among the states. That's the end of our show. And in the future, there will be more shows about new exhibitions. And please stay with us. Thank you for watching.